What's up, Roos? I'm Lawrence Brooks IV, and welcome to a new semester of Roo News.
COVID-19 mask mandate.
There's a lot to cover.
Lieutenant Governor Mike UMKC reported. COVID cases are slowly climbing as finals are approaching. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cristian Martinz, filling in for Lawrence Brooks IV.
And I'm Sylvia Jeffress. As of May the 2nd, UMKC announced that there are 23 active COVID cases, a slight uptick from last week's 18. The total amount of cases increased to 294, which many didn't think would happen. If you are still in need to get the vaccine, the university will hold its final vaccination clinic on May 3rd at the Student Union from 1 to 5 p.m. If you want to get tested, all UMKC students and staff can go to 5050 Oak Street where you can find a mobile testing site. The unit is open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. from Monday through Saturday. The testing is appointment-based with the final available time at 3:30 p.m. Click on the link in the description to make an appointment.
Many students at UMKC go out to do great things. Enoch Tedeschi interviewed Dylan Grove, a young film student at the university who continues to work with excellent people.
Hello, my name's Enoch Tedeschi. This is my 5-minute interview with a friend of mine, but also someone who we've done projects together in a class. His name is Dylan Groves. Dylan is a pretty cool guy. He's been at UMKC for 5 years now, right?
Yeah, 5 years.
So that's pretty nice. And you said that you are majoring in what, like film production? Or?
Yeah, I major in film and media studies. I was a major in film and media studies. I switched it to communications with a film and media focus.
Okay. So how has that been so far? Like, how have you enjoyed,
Yeah.
taking those classes,
Yeah, no. It's been awesome. UMKC has allowed me to get involved in the industry very heavily. I've met a lot of people, UMKC alums, that are involved in the film industry, making commercials, short films, music videos, and just the handful of people I met have put me on to working with Strange Music, working with the Chiefs, Chime, Oreo, countless short films, a couple of features, that kind of thing. So it's been amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Well, I want to get right into that. See, like that's the beautiful thing about being here is that you find people that you can definitely like connect with and start new things. Mm-hmm. You told me earlier that you started 9 to Never, which is a video production company.
Yeah.
You guys, do music videos, you do corporate ads, you do a whole bunch of things. So tell me about that. Like, tell me how your experience starting this has been, when you first started and, even right now, like how have things been going?
Yeah, so I started 9 to Never back in June, and really, this is something that I've always wanted to do. I got into film school because I wanted to make music videos and music marketing content, and that's where my passion has been. I started as an artist first, and I started 9 to Never, but I waited because I wasn't confident in my ability. And so I spent like a year and a half working in film, getting in the industry, allowing it to pay my bills type and actually become a professional before I actually started that company. And when I first started it, I was really nervous and I didn't think anybody believed me. So I made a video for myself just to show people like we can do it. And ever since then, every single video has just gotten elevated budget-wise, quality-wise, everything, bigger crews. And it's just like a huge exponential curve that's been happening, and it's been amazing. Wow. So UMKC, and this all started just because I went to class one day and I talked to a guest speaker, and the guest speaker got me in touch with one person. And I did like 300 hours for this one person, Tony Ontiveros out of Lawrence, doing like grip and electric stuff. And he just put me on game. Yeah. And then it kind of just took off from there once 2021 hit, quit my job, went freelance. And then I was like, okay, if I can make money working on other people's projects, why can't I make money working on my own?
Right.
So it's just been a great experience.
In a way, you could say like the pandemic was kind of what propelled you to try and like elevate what you loved already. Connecting yourself with people, and you said Antonio was the person who kind of like connected you to like the bigger production budget.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
When the pandemic happened, like I realized how stagnant I was kind of in just my career in general and what I was doing with my life. Like I was really focused on school, but I wasn't doing anything outside of that to propel my career. And the pandemic happened. I was sitting in my room for like 4 months, and I was like, you know what? This isn't it. Like this isn't nice. like I really dug deep, and I found out what I wanted to do and how I wanted my life to look, and just like how I want to live once freedom is allowed back to me.
Yeah.
And I've made it a huge effort ever since then, like every single day, to make little steps towards that. And it's been working pretty well for the last like 2 years.
I see that,
So-
man. I've seen that. Are there any projects that you're working on right now? I know like, I saw in your story that was something that I really liked. It was like a bedroom scene.
Yeah.
And there was like a disco ball and like the purple lights inside. Could you tell me about that? Like, what's going on
Yeah,
there?
so this guy named Brandon Shea came up to me. He's a director, and he was like, "We want your company to produce this music video for us."
Yeah.
We were like, "Bet." We've been talking about it for like 2 months. The artist's name is DZ. The song is Good Love. We rented out a B&B. This is the biggest budget we've ever had before, so we were able to go really hard and get everything we wanted, and we're really excited.
Can
We
I
just
ask how
finished
much?
shooting. Yeah, it was an $8,000 budget. Yeah, which is nice. It was double what the one before that was. So that was really amazing, and allowed me to get everybody I wanted and all the gear I wanted, and we made something super cool. So
Yeah.
that'll probably come out in a month or so, probably June maybe.
Mid-June.
Yeah, mid-June, couple months. The first cut, we just finished shooting on a couple days ago, so the first
word?
cut will be ready in about 2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
I can't
it's
wait to
awesome.
see that, bro. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
What's your favorite project that you've worked on? Out of like, I actually went to the website and I've seen a couple of one. Like one of them was you actually like rapping. Like,
Yeah.
So would you call yourself like a rapper? Like, would you be inclined to say that?
I mean,
Would you-
I like to make music,
Yeah.
and it's more like a hobby, but I don't market myself as a rapper. I really am trying to I market myself as a director producer. And like that's where my passions lie, but I just love making music. And I was
Yeah.
like, I've always wanted to make a music video, and I never found somebody that can make a music video the way I wanted. So I was like, I'm gonna learn how to make my own. And it was really just to show people like, yo, I actually do this and stuff like that. Who knows what'll happen in the future?
Yeah.
You know, I love making music, and it's been my passion since like middle school, but I see a career in actually making music videos and music marketing content more so than I do making music.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm sticking with now.
Yeah, I know a lot of artists are multifaceted. Like like Donald Glover, he's a musician, but he's also a director.
Yeah, he's a
comedian.
writer.
He does a lot of stuff. And I feel like looking at you and where you're going, I feel like you could do lots of things, man. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
To learn more about what Dylan is doing, go to 92nvr.com.
Speaking of film, UMKC continues to grow in the film department. Estelle Hansen spoke with Christopher Metz about what he does at UMKC.
So today we're talking to Christopher Metz. He's currently a film production and screenwriting professor at UMKC, but prior to that he did writing, directing, and producing. So I was wondering, before you became a professor, what kind of experiences did you have that led you to being a professor?
Well, I've had a lot of experiences before my professorial career, I guess you could say. I worked in the industry really since 1999. When I was a student, I would do freelance work, like studio work like this. Continued taking classes, and I got hired at a school to do production. So I'd be a photographer, and I'd direct, and I produce programs for the institution. And I do portraiture photography, things like that. After that, let's see. Well, at the same time, I guess you could say I was friends with a lot of people that worked in production in that city. This would be Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So that led to also doing freelance work for live sports, Big Ten basketball, college sport. Semi-pro, like arena football, baseball, minor league baseball, you name it, I've kind of done it. So there's a lot of wide and varied experiences. So before then, I decided to go back to get my undergrad in film. And I did that. Then I decided to get my master's of fine arts in filmmaking. And all of the Masters of Fine Arts is kind of what leads you to be able to teach like at a university or something like that. Or it's a lot easier to be able to get that. So that's kind of what happened.
Are there any like particularly memorable projects that you remember working on before?
Oh yeah, since about 2002, one day they wanted me to, they had a college television station. And what happened was they had, the story actually, they had distance learning, okay, and you had people working in distance learning. And one of the people working there, they might have had their job in a little bit of questionable state, like they didn't know like what it was going to be going forward. So they thought, we need to do something publicly. So they took one of the film professors who knows a lot about film, and they said, hey, we have all these public domain movies, and we want you to do like introductions to these movies, you know. So, and then me, I was the lowest person on the totem pole production wise. So they're like, you'll work with them, and I'm like, okay, you know, we'll do it. So we began shooting just like little vignette, like sort of, if you're familiar with like Joe Bob Briggs or something like that, you'd have like characters doing these things to public domain horror films like Night of the Living Dead, even like something like Suspiria is technically in public domain, all these kind of things. So they would air these little intros to the movies they would have, and the idea was, oh, we'll put these posters out and show everybody and be like, look, the person in charge here is doing something. So that kind of washed over and was whatever, but I kept doing that for time I was there. And then it's still going on actually, and I'm friends with all those people. So that would be one example of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you doing anything currently in the production space, or are you mainly teaching?
I'm mainly teaching right now. What I'm doing right now is I'm applying everywhere I can think of for like full-time positions. So every summer, spring, maybe even sometimes like early spring, it becomes like stressful interviews and things like that. I'm also teaching at Johnson County Community College, doing film classes there.
Cool. I was curious, if money and resources were no obstacle, what would you want to make if you had the time and all that?
If I had the time, I would probably do some narrative crazy ideas or something like that. I'd probably do extensions of what my thesis project was, which is like a 28 minute narrative about, it's based on the movie, not based on the movie, but it'd be something like Wings of Desire or City of Angels, those kind of things. So I'd probably just figure out ways to take these, I have a lot of ideas, so probably just figure out ways to take those ideas and just make them manifest, you know, by putting them out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've been doing that kind of stuff on the side, just sort of working?
Doing a little bit. A lot of my energy is in the teaching realm right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing 4 classes a semester, which is somewhat draining. We'll see what the summer brings, because this will be the first summer that I haven't taught anything, you know, for like, ever since summer 2019. After that was like the COVID stuff, but I've taught summer classes all the time. So it's usually me just putting ideas to paper or things like that. And when I do that, I don't really think too much in terms of limitations as to budget or anything like that, because that can be limiting. So just spit it out, see what happens.
So when you made the transition between sort of working in the field and then becoming a professor, what sort of motivated you to make that change?
Well, it's one way to make money, doing that. And I had never really thought about teaching before grad school, but one of the things when I applied, I just wrote in there, oh, you know, I probably have some interest in doing that. And I had a lot of production experience beforehand, so they kind of thought that maybe you might be a good candidate for this. So what I did was, let me think of the proper way to say this. I was a lab assistant and also a teaching assistant to the main professors there that did like the intro classes. So I was in charge of a class for like 3 hours twice a week, something like that. So, and then basically from the first day there, I was like, oh, you know, yeah, I like doing this. This is fine. And the students seemed to, you know, react well, I guess. So it seemed like something that was natural based with the experience and the degree I had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And between like your experience as a student at the school that you went to, have you noticed any differences about the way film is taught, or like the equipment that is different from your school to this one, or any differences?
Yeah, I've had a few different places. The equipment can vary. I mean, but my opinion is people might overly get too picky about their equipment sometimes. Like ultimately, it's on can you like operate it, because you never know what you're going to run into, like when you go out and do it. I would say, let's see. You can teach production in a very technical manner, which is some experience I've ran into, but there's also been more of like a philosophical approach where it's important to like try things, then see how it goes, and then you watch it, and then you get feedback and you learn from that. So I've had influence from all of those things. I'm just trying to bring a mix of that wherever I feel it can benefit the most, I guess. So it's good to have the technical knowledge, but I think if you just make it too technical, it just gets like super dry. And you're here to do it exponential learning. That's the idea, I think.
Mm-hmm. And what's your favorite part about being an instructor?
Probably just the relationships with everybody. Seeing people like come out of their shell, and figure out, have them get the confidence that they can do it, because I believe like pretty much every student in the classes can do it and do good things. They just have to believe in themselves just a little bit. So that's really probably the best part.
Cool. Well, it was really nice talking to you and catching up, because I haven't seen you in a while. So thank you for coming out.
Oh, sure thing.
Metz offers multiple classes including film and production and screenwriting. Talk to your advisor if you want to take these classes.
Now, there's been a popular debate within the RooTV crew. Is Cartoon Network better or Nickelodeon? To settle this issue, here's Joshua Cunningham on his take.
What's up? I'm back on the news, Joshua Cunningham, and I'm here with Jackson Ogden. We're discussing a very, very, very important topic in today's climate. It's really been stuck in my head for a long time, and that is what's better at cartoons, Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network? So who better to bring in than Jackson? We've had this discussion so many times. So first off, I'm just gonna, before like anything, I just want to know, what would you say is better? Just off rip.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Cartoon Network to start.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my favorite cartoon growing up was Total Drama Island, and they did have that. You're talking about they had Courage the Cowardly Dog. That was a classic. They had Dexter's Laboratory, so that was another classic. I just had a lot. Like I watched Cartoon Network so much as a kid. I believe they had Adventure Time as well.
Yes,
so you're talking about just so many classics within Cartoon Network, and this isn't to hate on Nickelodeon, but I just feel like Nickelodeon was more like their animation cartoon series was second tier to their like real life acting series. And Cartoon Network obviously is reversed. Cartoon Network's cartoons, so that's why I think Cartoon Network is superior. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I agree. Cartoon Network just had so many good shows. Like you mentioned, Total Drama Island, Courage the Cowardly Dog. They had the original Teen Titans. They had, what are some other shows I really liked? I liked Chowder. It was dumb, but it was a great show.
Was good.
They had so many shows, like it was really my childhood. Johnny Test.
Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry.
That one, that just is hard to beat, in all honesty.
You can't,
I mean, we go into Nickelodeon, and what do they have? Like, we have SpongeBob, and that is like, that's S tier. That's tough to beat.
That's tough to beat. They had Avatar, which I would say is also another good one.
That was good.
But Fairly Odd Parents, I'd say that was good for the most part. I feel like they tried a little too hard towards the end, but I mean, but really, it's like,
and then they had Jimmy Neutron, didn't they?
They had Jimmy Neutron.
Jimmy Neutron was a good show as well. Nickelodeon did, they held their weight in this aspect. We talked about this right before we started recording. Mr. Meaty, probably the most disturbing show I watched as a child, but it was a show I did watch.
It was good.
But you're talking about like Cartoon Network, like regular show even, like
regular show.
I feel like good. Cartoon Network's worst shows would still be like some of Nickelodeon's best shows.
Yeah, like I'll give Nickelodeon this, that when they got a good cartoon, it was like, they nailed it. Like, you can't really, like we said, you can't really beat SpongeBob. I mean, what's really topping it? But at the same time, there was only like 4, 5, 6, like cartoons you could really be like, oh yeah, these match with Cartoon Network. And I feel like Cartoon Network was just constantly putting out.
Pumping them out.
Yeah, and like even Amazing World of Gumball, even the later shows were still like very good compared to, Nickelodeon. And like you said, if we're going all Nickelodeon and you put Drake and Josh and iCarly and all
then
that,
things get a little more confusing.
Yeah, then it's like more of a competition, I'd say, because, those are great shows. But if we're going strictly cartoons, I mean, it's in the name. Cartoon
Yeah,
Network.
and I know people are going to be like, well, where's Disney? Disney is not on the tier of these two. That's the thing that we have to keep in mind. You've got Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
You have that. But other than that, like, where does the cartoon aspect from Disney compete? And that's why I feel like we just didn't, like, I know there's going to be someone watching and be like, well, what about Disney? Well, that's pushed to the side. We're talking about Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network.
Yeah, there's
right
maybe you could say Kim Possible. Like, that's
true.
one.
That's true.
That's one I'd give Disney, but, like,
forgot about that
they
one.
are less, like we said, Nick doesn't even compare to Cartoon Network, and Disney doesn't compare.
Like,
to,
Disney's below Boomerang. Like, Boomerang would beat Disney when it came to just cartoons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you didn't say this. What was your favorite cartoon?
My favorite cartoon?
You can go both Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon.
So, obviously, Nickelodeon, I have to go SpongeBob.
Fair choice.
And then Avatar would be a close second, but it doesn't really feel like Nick. It felt more adult-like, so I enjoy it more now than I did then. But I'd say SpongeBob for Nick. I feel like that's just a simple choice. Cartoon Network, it's a little harder. I just watched so much cartoons. I really enjoyed Johnny Test as a kid.
Johnny Test is that's a great one.
I definitely enjoyed Total Drama Island a lot. That was a really good one. Amazing World of Gumball, because like that was my middle school and I watched a lot of Cartoon Network in middle school, and that was one of the better shows, I'd say. And
I agree.
Oh, I forgot this, but Ben 10 was
10.
back then. Like,
it went hard.
But I guess I would say, like, just overall, probably, like, Johnny Test, Total Drama Island, that age, like, was probably my favorite.
Oh, that was a golden age of cartoons. Like, I don't care what anybody got to say. Nothing today compares to that. So, with all this being said, we both picked Cartoon Network. What's your least favorite Cartoon Network show you've watched?
Clarence was a show on Cartoon Network that was absolutely awful. I hated, like, every second of it. And then there's Uncle Grandpa, too, which was, like, the dumbest show. Like, the whole premise was that he was everybody's uncle and grandpa. And I was like, wow, like, that was the idea that Cartoon Network gave a green light to. That, like, and that's when Cartoon Network was starting to slip up a little bit. It was starting to slide down a little bit. Teen Titans Go was also pretty terrible. I'm not going to lie. Like, at the beginning, I enjoyed it, being a kid. But, like, the more I watched, the more I was just like, this is so bad. Especially because they had Teen Titans to compare it to. Like,
Teen
Titans
hard.
was so good that, like, Teen Titans Go just couldn't compare. But I'd say those three, but Clarence specifically, is the worst. What about you? What would you say yours?
Least favorite. See, that's kind of hard because, like, I stopped watching when I'd, like, kind of got to around, like, 12. So, like, at that point. So, like, when I was growing up, there wasn't any, like, I really disliked. I'm looking through the shows right now just to see if there's anything that I didn't really think of. I found Clarence on here. Yeah, you.
Yeah. Not good.
I mean, I don't think there's one that I necessarily don't like. Maybe that's just because I started. Like, I guarantee if I started watching again right now, I'd be like, this show's terrible.
Yeah.
But, I feel like I've left at a time that I was like, yeah, what I watched was pretty good, and that was the way it was. So, I don't have many complaints about Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network, that's why I think they're my favorite. It's just because there was really never a show that they programmed that I wouldn't watch.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, I watched a lot of those shows, so obviously they're doing something right.
Yeah.
I gave them all a chance.
Right.
And even though they had those two shows, they were smart. They didn't show them all the time. They showed the better shows they had, and so I feel like they did a good job. What would be your least favorite Nick show you think you've watched?
See, that's where it kind of falls into the same category. Is it's like, I just didn't, like, there wasn't a lot as a kid that I would watch if I didn't like. I was kind of a hard critic. I wouldn't give it much of a chance. If I didn't really like the first episode I watched, I really wouldn't go any further. Yeah. But I could say Mr. Meaty was both one of my favorite and least favorite at the same time. Like I said, a little creepy, a little off-putting, but Now, what would you say, and you can combine Nick and Cartoon Network for this, was the most underrated show out of both of them? Or just the most underrated cartoon of you growing up? Because I think mine was Fanboy and Chum Chum. That would be my thing. Deja behind the camera, she just put that on her thing right before I said it. She put that right on the slate before I said that. I was thinking, we were in sync. What would you say?
Fanboy and Chum Chum is definitely super underrated.
Yeah.
I watched back at the Barnyard.
Back at the Barnyard, yes.
A lot.
I liked that show.
Like, it was more on Nicktoons, but it's still
Right.
Nick. Like, they had
Yeah,
all
no,
these
we're
other
counting it.
channels.
We're counting it.
But I'd say, honestly, that was one of the more underrated shows that I enjoyed watching a lot. So I guess I give my pick to that, honestly. Like, that's...
No, I like
No
that.
one really talks about it as much.
I remember they made the movie about that. I think it was just called Barnyard. And then they made that, and then they made that spinoff there. And I watched that all the time. I know not a lot of people talked about it, but I thought it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I think Nick had some underrated ones, but it was also hard because they were on a different channel, like not the regular Nick.
Right.
So it's hard to put them there. But I think we did all the arguing we could do.
We came to a good conclusion, and I feel like we gave, whichever side you want to argue, Nick or Cartoon Network, we've given you good ammo.
Yeah.
We've given you good things to argue. If you want to argue Disney, then find another show. But we've given you some good stuff to argue.
Yeah, I think we did. Any closing remarks on either of these things, or?
No, man. I mean, I will say I'm kind of inclined to go home and watch some of this now. Like, I haven't watched it in a very long time, but I'm kind of inclined to watch it now.
Honestly, same here. I know Netflix has a few.
That's
Total
true.
Drama
Total
Island's
Drama
on Netflix,
Island, yep,
so
yep.
I might go back to the dorm and start watching it. Not gonna lie.
You can never be too old.
But yeah, that concludes the segment of which is better, Nick or Cartoon Network. Appreciate you for being on here.
Appreciate you having me.
This is the last time this semester that we get to do it. I know, sad tears, but we'll be back. We'll be back next semester. So I hope you enjoyed this last segment.
Now that we heard that, all I gotta say, honestly, I feel like it's very close. I feel like Nickelodeon has put out better, like more popular things.
Whoa.
Okay,
Ben 10?
but also SpongeBob.
I
Fairy
never
Odd
watched
Parents.
SpongeBob.
Fairy Odd
I never
Parents.
watched that.
Fairy Odd Parents.
I
Like,
watched Cartoon Network with like a burning passion.
They carry.
I liked
carry
Nickelodeon for
Nickel.
like House of Anubis, but like for cartoons, Cartoon Network.
Look, all I gotta say, okay, Cartoon Network has more underrated bangers, but I think that Nickelodeon is like, I grew up with Nickelodeon, and I think that
I grew up with both.
nothing compares to SpongeBob or like season 1 through like 8 Fairy Odd Parents.
Okay.
Or Fairly Odd Parents, sorry.
Agree to disagree?
Agree to disagree.
Now from UMKC News, we jump into the den with Jackson Ogden. Take it away, Jackson.
Welcome back into the den. I'm Jackson Ogden. Today I've got Cristian Martinz alongside me to discuss the NFL draft that took place last weekend. So Cristian, just overall, let's just start. Overall thoughts on the Chiefs draft, how they did.
This was an amazing draft for Kansas City. I was watching this draft so close because I truly think that this is like one of the most important drafts for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And they knocked it out of the ballpark, to be honest. I mean, you got guys like Sky Moore, George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, Leo Chenal. You got these young corners that Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. And then you got that guy, Darian Kennard. Like, to me, this is one of the best drafts. What are your thoughts?
I thought they really did a good job. I think last year's draft with Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, Trey Smith, that was a very impactful draft on how they did last year, and I think you're going to see the same thing this year. I think that last year Veach really nailed it when he had to, and I think this year, again, you lose a lot of defensive pieces. You lose, obviously Tyreek Hill, you kind of had to hit again. So let's just start from the top. They trade up from 29 to 21 to go get Trent McDuffie. What were your thoughts on the trade up and then going to get McDuffie?
I think that Veach talked about this and he was like, I didn't think McDuffie would fall to 21.
I didn't either, yeah.
Like, I thought that, in reality, I thought, okay, it's going to be Kyer Elam or Jalen Petrie. Mm-hmm. But the fact that a top 15 talent like McDuffie fell to 21, I think it was time for us to strike. And, we didn't give up I didn't think we gave up too much, even though some people think we might have oversold on McDuffie, a third and a fourth. And our first to just jump up, but I think it was worth it because what McDuffie shows you on tape is a guy that's physical, a guy that will be right there with any star wide receiver out there. He reminds me a lot of a Jair Alexander, and it might be a little bit of a stretch, but a guy like Darrelle Revis. Both are 5'11", 5'10" guys, but they were just physical and they never give up on a play. Both really good tacklers. And you see that in McDuffie as well when he played with Washington. And I mean, we did a really good job with Marcus Peters, even though he had those off the field issues. But I mean, you get a guy like McDuffie on this defense, you have a really really great secondary now.
You needed corner 100%. You lost Trevarius Ward. You got guys next year coming up on contracts. Rashad Fenton. Snead only has 2 years left because he wasn't a first-round pick. So you did need corner. It was something you had to address, especially with how poor at times it looked last year. But then with pick number 30, they were able to still keep another first-round pick, and they got what a lot of people would argue is another top 15 talent in George Karlaftis to add some pass rush.
To me, George Karlaftis is one of the many steals that Kansas City had in this draft. I think a lot of their picks are steals, but to me, Karlaftis reminds me a lot of a guy like Ryan Kerrigan.
Okay.
Or TJ Watt.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
It's a stretch.
So a lot of people, remember in Pittsburgh, a lot of people didn't like TJ Watt because he was a pure strength guy.
Right.
He wasn't someone he didn't have the bend
that
a lot of other defensive ends have or linebackers. And you see how he's doing now. Yep. So a really good pass rusher.
You learn those moves.
And to me, Karlaftis has a high floor. He's a guy who can beat you with his pure strength. He's relentless as a pass rusher, and you want that. I think that Kansas City needs that because you got guys like Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson running in the AFC, and you need someone who can never give up on a play. So I think that picking Karlaftis and getting him at 30 is such a tremendous value selection, and it also just helps the defensive line in general.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, last year in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs only got 1 sack on Cincinnati. And the week before, Cincinnati got sacked 9 times. And the week after, I don't remember the exact number, but Burrow was under duress every play. So there was a clear issue there. There was a clear issue that you weren't able to put pressure on quarterbacks, and that makes life on your secondary hard as well. So then you look at it, and you have now Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Josh Allen, all of these tremendous quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, in the AFC, and you're just going to leave your secondary to die if you don't get a pass rush. So, obviously Frank Clark's aging. They weren't able to get a consistent enough pass rush a year ago. You add a guy like Karlaftis, and like you said, high motor, young guy. He's going to be able to come in and give you, a good amount of reps a game and put pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. So there's another pick in this draft that I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit that will help with that pass rush, but I think a guy like Karlaftis is who you would want. That's a guy that I know that some people were like, go Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah.
But he got picked up 26th.
Yeah, a little higher.
Yeah, and I didn't think that trading up for him would be ideal. So I think that I'm happy with Karlaftis. I'm excited to see what he does. I do believe that he can develop into a really good pass rush person in general.
Yeah.
I think that if you bring in a guy like Melvin Ingram or Jadeveon Clowney, bring guys who are veterans who know the game, bring them in to help Karlaftis kind of learn about the bend and learn about technique.
Yeah.
I think Karlaftis can be a 10 sack a year person for KC.
That's very possible, honestly. I think you look at him, and especially with the pressure that a guy like Chris Jones is going to generate through the middle, and Frank Clark on that other side, it's going to also draw attention. You're going to see George Karlaftis' numbers risen by the guys that he's playing alongside. But you brought up there was another guy that's going to help out the pass rush that we took in this draft. Who's that?
It's going to be Leo Chenal. This guy is like the pure definition of violence. Like the way he plays makes me so excited for this defense.
Right.
Because it's what they need. And another guy that brings that kind of violent style of play, Brian Cook.
Yeah.
I think both of those guys are going to fill in the roles of like Ben Neiman and Daniel Sorensen. Yeah. Now, those guys were not good with Kansas City. Nowhere near good. But Leo Chenal and Brian Cook can play those positions a million times better.
Yeah.
You have a guy like Chenal go in the A gap, play that Sam position in the line with the linebackers, put him on the left side, and then leave Nick Bolton in the middle, and then put Willie Gale on the right on coverage. Yeah. You let a guy like Chenal blitz with that defensive line, quarterbacks are going to be scared. He's a very fast dude down, straight up. Mm-hmm. He has incredible strength. He can get to the quarterback. He had 18 tackles for loss. I believe he had 8 sacks on his sophomore, junior year with Wisconsin. So that's the kind of defender you want, and we can even transition him to a defensive end. He's bulky enough to do it. And then when you look like a guy like Brian Cook, he plays the box safety really well. Mm-hmm. He's not afraid to tackle. He's decent in coverage. I believe he had 9 pass deflections with Cincinnati in his sophomore year. And even though he might not have the interception production that you'd want, he's still going to go out there and go make plays for you. And he's going to play that Daniel Sorensen position so well, and that's what we need. We need guys who can step up, make plays all the time, and never give up. And that's the kind of players Kansas City selected defensively.
Yeah. I think when you look at Kansas City a year ago, they kind of knew, and not just a year ago, in the last few years, that they're a little soft, that they're more finesse, that they're more big playability. And last year that kind of punched them in the mouth early in the season, kind of hurt them late in the season as well. I think you look at that and they went into this draft and they said, look, we need to be more physical. They get a guy like McDuffie, a physical corner. Get a guy like Karlaftis, a physical freak on that defensive line, and then you get a guy like Brian Cook, who might not be, the most technical safety, but he's a thumper. He comes down and he hits, and that's what, obviously they want. They want guys that are more physical. There was sometimes last year where a guy like Tyrann Mathieu would make a business decision in that situation, wouldn't throw his body out there like that. That's nothing against Tyrann, it's just the reality of the situation. So you look at that, I think Kansas City knew that they had to get more physical in this draft, and I think they did that.
Yeah, and then let's go to the offense real quick, because I think Kansas City did an amazing job picking out two really good offensive players. They picked that running back, Isaiah Pacheco or whatever.
Pacheco out of Rutgers, in the 7th.
Yeah, in the 7th. But two players on offense that they selected that will make a difference is Darian Kennard, who plays who played offensive guard with Kentucky, but can play tackle, and then Sky Moore. Let's talk about Sky Moore.
Yeah, Sky Moore falling to 54 was an interesting one, and I think, that's where Kansas City really benefited in this draft process, was not necessarily that they had the highest picks, but you talk about Karlaftis at 30, that's a pretty far fall. You talk about Sky Moore at 54, that's a fall, and then you talk about Leo Chanel at 103, that's a huge fall as well. Sky Moore's going to come into this offense, and he's going to play that slot position, and he's going to take a lot of pressure off of Mecole Hardman in that slot position. You're going to have two guys now that can play some of that interior crossing route type routes. And then you're going to have a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the outside that can stretch the field, go deep. And I just think that overall adding Sky Moore to that offense really opens it up a lot.
And when I watched Sky Moore's tape, a lot of the things I see are he's excellent in RPO. And I know that Kansas City might strive away from that now with guys like MBS, Juju, and McCole. McCole's still on the team, pardon. But I think Sky Moore comes in immediately and can help with RPOs. I mean, he has one of the best short burst kind of route running that I've seen in this draft. He does an amazing job on slants. I mean, he's really fast. He's not as slow as some of your other receivers in the draft. And even then, he has some of the biggest hands in this class. I mean, I think his hand size is like more than 10 inches, which usually you'd want a wide receiver with like 9. Right. With 9.5, but he has big hands that can catch balls. He's really reliable, and I know that offensively, Western Michigan isn't like the best. But when you go to an offense like Andy Reid's and you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, he's gonna produce. Even though I wish we could have got a guy like Christian Watson or George Pickens, who are bigger guys who can still run but have a bigger catch radius. Sky Moore will come in here, play the slot excellently, could even play outside, and he could still do things with KC.
Yeah, so as we're wrapping this up, Christian, what would you, you've given a lot of praise, but what would you grade-wise give Kansas City in this draft?
I'd give him an A.
An A?
I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, they did a lot of right things. They bolstered the secondary. They provided edge rush help that was needed. Right. And then you also get a guy like Sky Moore and Kennard here, and then your 7th-round picks, I think, are good steals. So, and let's talk about, we also got Justin Ross, who just got signed with KC.
Undrafted, yeah.
Undrafted, was supposed to go like maybe in the 3rd, even in the 2nd. Some people have him going in the 1st.
Yeah,
So
Veach did an amazing job, and I have to praise Veach because I remember when he had garbage drafts. Remember Tanyan Passanio?
Yeah,
like
that, a lot of misses.
And now he has a lot of hits, and I cannot wait for rookie minicamp.
Yeah. I'm very excited for the rookie minicamp as well. I'm excited to see how these guys produce this year because if we saw anything a year ago, it's that the Chiefs, the guys that they brought in, were able to produce immediate success with guys like Creed Humphrey we brought up. And even like guys years back like L'Jarius Sneed who have been able to produce immediately. The Chiefs obviously value that. So I'm excited to see what these guys can do. I'd probably give them an A as well. I think it's not too crazy to say that. I know it sounds like kind of a homer thing to say. But look, I feel like they hit a lot of needs and they got a lot of talent, and a lot of talent fell to them. So I'd leave it at that.
And the best thing, too, is they still have cap space if they need to address other positions.
Right.
I mean, again, bring in a guy like Melvin Ingram. If you feel like your wide receiver room is not bulky as it needs to be, go get a guy like Jarvis Landry.
Right.
But you even still have guys like Josh Gordon who can do something.
They could break out, in year 2 of the, knowing the playbook and stuff like that.
So yeah, I remember a lot of people were saying Kansas City is not going to be able to compete with the AFC. It's too loaded, but Kansas City can go on top. They can be the leaders of the AFC, to be honest.
I mean, that draft class really, really changes things. I feel like without that draft class, you're looking at a weak secondary, you're looking at a weak pass rush, you're probably looking at even a bottom half of the league wide receiver core. You add some pieces to that offense, you add a lot of pieces to that defense like we've talked about, and I feel like, Kansas City should still be the favorite in the AFC. Yeah,
and again, it's going to be interesting to see what Andy Reid and what Steve Spagnuolo change, because it seems like I believe that there's going to be major changes coming on the offense and defensive side. Yeah. So we'll see this upcoming season, see how they do.
Well, we'll see heading into the fall how these guys do, how they produce this year for the Chiefs. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode, and that's going to wrap it up for this semester of Sports Breakdown. I want to thank everybody that tuned in this semester and watched, and we'll be back in the fall for more Chiefs and Royals breakdowns.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this week. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram.
And check us out on RooTV and RooNews for campus and KC Metro news. We're going to see you next fall, so be excited.